You're listening to
the Beer O'Clock.
The Beer O'Clock Show.
You're listening to the Beer O'Clock Show.
It's Beer O'Clock, and this is the Beer O'Clock Show, where every week we drink beers from around the country and around the world. My name is Mark, and joining me in his Three Lions onesie is my beer buddy, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Glad to be back for yet another season.
Very good. And this is season 7, and this season we're doing something of a Six Nations season, hence the Three Lions onesie crack. Because tonight is England night.
It's always good when you have to explain your jokes, isn't it?
Why don't you tell the boys and girls what's going on with this all too brief of a season?
It's a bit of a strange one for us because we've mentioned this before with how our holidays didn't exactly coordinate this year. So it means that we've had to move things around a little bit to squeeze in a season before the summer hits. So we've got a very short, I think it's about 8 weeks this season. And we're kind of having a look around the UK at some beers from England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. We're also bringing into that France and Italy as well. So hence the Six Nations theme. And also right in the middle of the season, we'll be celebrating Beer Day Britain as well with the official beer that's being brewed for that event. And we'll have Jane Payton on, who's behind the event as well. So that pretty much sums up the season. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be good fun. There's a lot of me and you this season, and very few guests as well. So people will just have to put up with us, I guess.
Well, I did have a little bit of a complaint last season because I wasn't getting enough of you to myself. I was sharing you around a bit too much, Steve.
Yeah, you've got me completely to yourself for the whole season. Like I say, apart from the one show where we've got Jane on for Beer Day Britain, we've also got the homebrew special coming back as well.
Yep.
So we'll have the 3 homebrewers on with us as well, and we might, dependent on if we pull the beer off for the end of the season, we might have a guest with us at the end of the season as well.
Okie dokie. So we're kicking off this week's show. Tonight is England night. Of the Six Nations
It's all
night.
about England tonight, yeah.
It's all about England. We've got 2 beers, actually. We only had one scheduled originally. And anyone who listened to the last episode of the last season would have heard us say we were going to kick off this season with an Irish beer. But a special beer got launched while we were on somewhat of a hiatus, or starting our hiatus. So we kind of paired that with an English beer, because it is an English beer. So, to get to the point, this week's beers are Adnams Broadside, that 30-something-year-old classic beer, with Beavertown's Skull King Double IPA. Kind of like an old and the new mix and match. It's going to be an interesting one. So we'll get into those in just a little bit. Stevie!
Ma!
You got any news, mate?
There's loads of news, mate. We've been off air for what feels like an age. It's only actually a week that we haven't recorded a show, but in that time, there's loads of news. Yes.
All right, here's your pips. Beep 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 beep.
Okay, I'm going to start off with something that you have hopefully heard in our mini-sode that we put out just before the end of season 6. The United Craft Brewers Association was launched at an event at Beavertown a few weeks ago now. There's still very little information to emerge about this, so I'd probably just say for now go back and listen to our mini-sode that we did where Justin Mason interviewed Logan Plant and get the lowdown on the United Craft Brewers Association, and watch this space as more information comes out about that. We'll be sharing it with you. While we've been off as well, there was another festival launch that I'm keen to get your thoughts on this one, mate. The London Craft Beer Carnival was launched from the 1st to the 4th of October. It's going to be 50 of the world's greatest breweries coming to London to celebrate great beer. There's going to be no cult brands in there. It's 100% invitation only. So there's no big breweries, and it's going to be 50 breweries under one roof in central London. Some of the names that are on the list that you'll know from just beers in the UK and beers that we've featured before: Galway Bay, Beavertown, Burning Sky, Fine, Wild, Colonel, Northern Monk, Thornbridge. And it goes on. 100 kegs per session. Once they're gone, they're gone. 6 sessions over 4 days. It's the interesting thing. Each session costs £50. per session. Yes, it's a lot of money. If you want to go for the whole weekend, it's £250. Now, there was quite a storm about this when it was launched on Twitter, and I've got to say, I had an opinion on it as well, because I think it's a great idea, and I can see the idea of if you pay £50 and you essentially drink as much as you can for that session for your £50. Now, that's all very well and good, but I've been to festivals where I've paid a tenner to get in, and I've struggled to spend £50 on beer.
Yeah.
I just think, and also I just think the timing of it is all wrong. It's squeezed. It's the week before Indie Man, and it's a few weeks after the London Craft Beer Festival as well. And I just can't understand why they've squeezed it into that tiny space when they've got the whole year to choose from. Anyway, that's just my view. I don't know what you think of it, mate. Whether you've seen this, whether you've got any thoughts on it.
I saw the whispers going, or the mutterings going around on Twitter when it was launched. I didn't pay that much attention to it because I don't go to many beer festivals, and so it didn't really bother me. I didn't really understand what the whole deal was. I figured it was just the launch date was the main thing, and I saw you mention a £50 fee, but I thought that was a ticket fee for the entire festival.
No, that's per session, mate.
Not per session.
£50 per session.
I mean, I'm not a huge drinker, but like if I take into consideration, say, the Great British Beer Festival that we went to last year, just thinking about, I drank, because we had the thirds glass, and we went around, and I was there for about maybe 3 hours, and I think I may have had all up maybe 3.5 pints of different beers as going along. But the main thing was meeting people and talking to people. And to think that I'm going to have, someone will pay £50 to go into a session and basically want to get their £50 worth, that's 10 pints that they're wanting to drink from that session.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Easily, yeah.
And you're not going to get that because you're going to meet people, you're going to be talking about the beers, and before you know it, most of the entertainment you've created yourself with your interactions with people, and you maybe had 2 or 3 pints. It sounds like a bit of a gold mine for the organisers, I have to say.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's no secret that the guys behind it at the Craft Beer Co., who have got a number of bars all over London and the South East. I'd be interested in hearing what the listeners think of that as well. So what do you prefer when it comes to a beer festival? Do you want to just pay your money once, get in and drink as much as you can while you're in that session, or would you rather a lower ticket price and then reasonable price for samples of beer for the session? Let us know. Tweet us or leave a comment in tonight's show notes. But anyway, if you want further information about that, LondonCraftBeerCarnival.com is where you go for that information. Okay, so next up, the Magic Rock Tap Room, something that I and most beer geeks are very, very excited about. Opening in June 2015. This is a bit of a plug for them, really. They're looking for experienced bartenders and supervisors. So if anybody's from that area in Huddersfield and wants to work for Magic Rock in their new tap room, they're paying living wage, which is $7.85 per hour for bartenders, $8.50 for supervisors. Send your CV and a short paragraph about yourself to taproom@magicrockbrewing.com. Just a couple of other things as well. New podcasts out from the Irish Beer Snob and from Stephen Rowland. Stephen Rowland hit their 100th show recently and gave us a big shout on it, so thanks, guys, for that. Make sure you check out these podcasts because Stephen Rowland's stuff is really good. It's really to the point. It's tied into the Beer Bods beer each week, but there's quite some interesting banter that goes on between the guys there, particularly around their disagreeing around branding and flavours and that sort of thing. So an Irish Beer Snob, Wayne and Janice have got a new episode out as well, so check those out. And then finally, just one last plug for our old mate, some random bloke off Twitter, Justin Mason. When he was on a few weeks ago, he was talking about his new blog series around beers in Essex. Well, he's now started a new Twitter feed just to focus on beers in Essex. So you can follow that at Beers in Essex if that's the sort of thing that you're into.
Very good. And that so endeth the news.
Yeah, big news this week, mate. But there's going on while we've been off for that 1 week.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, speaking of malt bombs, as I was, we got this week's first beer. The first of 2 England representatives for the Six Nations contest. It is Broadside from Adnams. Now, if you want a little bit of the history of the beer, Steve has done a great little interview with Belinda Jennings from Adnams, which is going to be at the end of the show, so give that a listen. Well worth listening to. And she talks about how this beer came about and all that kind of stuff. So, Steve's pouring his out already, so I'm going to get cracking.
I wanted to get this to a glass just to let it sit for a bit, because it's a beautiful looking beer when it's in the glass, and there's so much aroma going on in there. I wanted to just give that a couple of seconds to air out before we actually got into it. Now, I imagine at this stage there's probably a few people thinking, "Oh, Adnams, really? What are you guys doing?" Well, when we originally put this season's list together, I've got to say that Broadside is a beer that I've wanted to feature on the show for ages, and we've never found a place for it to sit. And then when we came up with a concept for this Six Nations season, it seemed to sit really well within that, in terms of representing England in a really traditional style of beer. So I'm quite pleased to be doing Broadside finally on the Beer O'Clock Show.
Yeah, I think we wanted to do it in the early days, but we had done Southwold Bitter by Adnams, and I think that was our first beer.
It was,
we did.
Yeah.
So we kind of held off, and then ended up we held off for 3 years. But
yeah,
here we go. Broadside, really easy to get.
It's stocked in all the big four supermarkets as well. So
surprisingly, it's when you consider how popular something like Ghost Ship is, Broadside is just much more available than Ghost Ship.
Yeah, and also it's one of the Wetherspoon's core range of cask ales as well now, so you can get the cask version in pretty much any Wetherspoon up and down the country.
Yeah, so the bottled version is 6.2% ABV. I think Belinda mentioned in your interview at the end that the cask is a little bit lighter on ABV, because obviously being cask, you don't want to knock people's socks off with a 6%. Shall we get into it, mate?
Yeah, let's. It's sitting here. I'm letting it air. It has got a lovely kind of, and I think people should be able to relate to this. A lovely traditionally boozy flavour, aroma to it.
As usual, I'm not getting much on the nose.
Yeah, it's very malty, as you'd expect from Adnams. There's some dark fruits going on in there as well. I'm looking forward to having a good go at this. Cheers, mate. Welcome back to another season.
Oh, that's a lovely malty, dark, woody, slightly bitter finish. Nice residue.
It's got some really rich flavours going on in there as well, isn't it? Like I say, you get that maltness up front, and I know I've said this on the show loads of times, but there's a taste that you get from Adnams beers, and it sits right throughout their beers, and I call it that strong Adnams backbone, and that's there in this beer. That's holding it up. You do get lovely woody, earthy flavours coming through from it, and then there's this lovely rich sweet finish that's almost like it's like a fruitcake finish to it. It's got that lovely sweetness that you get from a fruitcake, and then a lovely soft bitterness at the end.
I take it this has got fuggles in.
First Gold hops.
Gold.
It's pale ale and chocolate malt and First Gold hops.
Okay.
So in terms of where we're at with this season, in terms of celebrating beers from all around the UK and Europe, and particularly celebrating Beer Day Britain, this is a beer that is brewed completely with British ingredients, so that you couldn't get more English than Adnams Broadside.
Yeah. It's a lovely beer. It's very smooth. Very easy for a 6.2%. Nice residual bitterness as well. It kind of hangs around for a little bit, but the maltiness doesn't hang around, which is, you can get some malty beers that are quite cloying, and you're just left with a mouthful of stickiness. You don't get that with this, despite, the strength of that malt flavour coming through. Just a nice residual bitterness at the back of your tongue, ready to be washed away by the next mouthful.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the interview that I did with Belinda at the end, Belinda talks about the differences between the bottle version and the cask version, the fact that there's a difference in the ABV between the two beers as well, the reasoning behind that. also talks about the fact that Adnams have been playing with this as well. So this is one of the first beers that Adnams have been experimenting with in terms of some barrel aging. So they've been aging some Broadside in some whiskey casks up at Adnams as well, and I had a little taste of that when I was up there. It's available at some selected festivals in the UK. Puts a really different finish on it as well, and that's the cask version of Broadside that they're playing with in there to give it some little differences. But it's a solid, good, traditionally English beer.
It is, yeah. You can't really fault it, unless you're not into this kind of thing. But I would think even the more wankier of craft lovers should be able to see the good qualities in this. It's really nicely balanced, and you're actually getting a mouthful of flavours which aren't full of twigs and leaves. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that you make there. It's being able to brew a really, really good, typically strong English bitter isn't an easy feat. It's not. It shouldn't be scoffed at just because it's Adnams Broadside and it's widely available. It doesn't mean there's any less skill gone into this.
Yep.
And I know from what we've got planned for the homebrew show, I know one of our homebrewers is planning on brewing a traditional English bitter as part of that. And some chatter that we've been having, he's really worried about how that's going to be perceived by the craft community. Mm-hmm. And I know that the other homebrewers that we've got involved in that show, because we've been chatting on email, have said to him, hey, if you pull off a strong English bitter, we're all going to take our hats off for you, because that is a feat as a homebrewer to be able to produce. So, yeah, it shouldn't be scoffed at just because, as I say, just because it's produced by a big regional brewery, just because it's widely available doesn't make it any less of a good beer.
No, and in the last 6 months we've seen a couple of other breweries doing their takes on things like Yorkshire bitter and things like that. And if you consider Fuller's ESB is considered one of the best bitters around, so it's a style that is worth trialing, and done well, it's worth drinking.
Yeah, I mean it's an enjoyable beer. It's definitely one that I'd probably rather be having this in the winter months. Because it's one that I'd like to sit with and drink over the course of the evening. It'd be good to do an experiment in terms of comparing the cask and bottle side by side as well to see what the differences are.
Yeah.
But it's one that's very widely available, so we'd love to hear people's thoughts on this beer as well. What do you think of Adnams Broadside? Let us know.
Anyway, while we continue supping on this, I think we have a little announcement.
We do, indeed. Yes.
So, crack on.
It's competition time, and we haven't done a competition
for
ages. So we are celebrating our new partnership with one of the online suppliers that are giving us discounts now for the show. So with thanks to Brewer for us with 3 boxes which we're going to give away, 3 boxes of beer. And people that are familiar with the show will remember what we did with Beers 52 a while back, where we decided we'd give the boxes away over our 3 main social platforms. Well, we're going to do the same again. So here's how you can be in with a chance of winning one of those 3 boxes. First one is through a Twitter competition that will be running from Sunday the 17th until Sunday the 31st of May. That's going to be a very simple click here, enter, that sort of thing. We'll select one winner randomly from the list, and you will receive a box of Brewer beers. The second way of winning a box of beers is to go to iTunes and to review and rate the show. Any reviews posted between Friday the 11th of May and Sunday the 31st of May will also go into a second draw, and a name will be pulled out of that hat, and second person will win a box of Brewer beers. And then the third way that you can win it, and it's prizeless no more time, on Instagram for the next 3 shows, whoever gets announced as a prize winner will also go into a draw for a box of Brewer beers. Now, these competitions will be running right up until the 31st of May for the next 3 weeks. You've got plenty of time to enter. Unfortunately, to our Irish listeners, it's UK entries only. Really sorry about that, guys, but those are the rules imposed on us by eBrea. However, that being said, they have said that if you guys have friends or relatives in Northern Ireland, they will ship to there if you win. So hopefully that won't deter you from winning. So those will be the 3 ways that you can enter the competitions. All of the links and how to do it will be in the show notes. So you can either win on Twitter, you can win by reviewing on iTunes, or you can win by winning the prize this no more.
And big thanks to eBrea.
Massive thanks to the guys at eBrea.
That awesome prize.
Yeah.
Right, how are you finding the end of this broadside, matey?
It's just solid through and through, mate. Right to the end. It's just a really enjoyable beer. And I think, strangely, compared to some of the beers that we've drunk recently that are quite a high ABV, and we kind of sit here and go, oh, yeah, that's sessionable. 6.5%, 7%, it's sessionable. I think this is a beer that actually shows its ABV. It's not hidden. You do get the feel that it's 6.2%, and actually, is it 6.2, 6.3? See, I can't even remember what ABV it is right now, and I'm sat right next to the bottle. It's 6.3. It's really, it's just really enjoyable. Like I say, you just get solid aromas, solid flavors from it. Really rich, sweet fruitcake flavors off of it. Lovely bit of finish. A really, really enjoyable beer.
Indeed, and like you're saying, the ABV is there, but it's so smooth that who cares?
Yeah, worryingly smooth though. That's the thing.
Right, shall we get on to the next one, mate?
Let's.
Okay, so as I mentioned, this is a pretty new beer. It's a limited edition. It's from our buddies at Beavertown. It's called Skull King Double IPA, and if you're involved in the beer community on Twitter, no doubt you saw the beer wankers getting all kinds of excitement about this beer in the last couple of weeks. We managed to get a couple of cans on when it launched, and I don't really know what else to say. It's a double IPA. It is... Where's the ABV on this? 8.7. Fucking hell. I don't know what hops they're using in this. Do you know what...
Yes, I do. Now, this is interesting because in direct contrast to the Adnams beer, which I think showcases English beer really, really well, from kind of the old guard as it may be, we're jumping now to one of the newest progressive breweries in the UK. First time we've seen a UK double IPA in a can, British brewed, completely with American hops though. So it's
right.
An American hop bomb. It's Citra, it's Columbus, and it's Amarillo. They're all thrown in there. It's gonna be those big citrusy flavors that you expect from a big American double IPA, all in this tiny little nano keg that Beavertown have produced. And yes, one that people got very excited about when it was launched. I have to say thanks to the guys at Beavertown because they did give us these cans to review on tonight's show. So thank you very much for that. I'm really looking forward to getting into this one because I think it's going to be the sort of beer that is right up my street.
Indeed. And if you're lucky and if you're quick, Ales by Mail have cans of these. So... they may be all gone by the time the show comes out, though.
Yep, there are still a few online suppliers that are saying they've got cans of these, but I know that as this show was released, the Ales by Mails ones did go on sale this week, so you can get in. We are still carrying the discount code for Ales by Mail as well, same as it always was, so try and get in and get a couple of cans of Skull King. I think you won't be disappointed.
You can smell those American hops.
The minute you crack the can.
Yep. And it's lovely and carbonated. Very slight head. Just what you would want from an IPA, really.
Yeah.
Huge citrus flavours. Oh, they're kind of like really rounded citrus flavours as well. I think the Amarillo is kind of putting some body in behind that Citra.
Yep, there's tropical in there. There's kind of a little bit of that resin coming off of there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit of forest floor in there, a bit of dankness from the forest floor. Oh, mate, I've got to dive into this.
Okay, cheers,
I
mate.
really have. Cheers, guys.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's just so smooth on the finish.
Yeah, that really hoppy nose kind of belies a really smooth, easy mouthful of beer.
Yeah. That is not, you get all all the tropical citrusy flavours up front. They hit you straight away. You get a little bit of sticky syrup in the middle, and then you're waiting for a big bitter kick that you get from a double hop bomb at the end, and it's just not there. It's just really, really smooth on the finish.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of like the second wave of bitterness after it's gone down, but like you're saying, you're not getting that full-on hop bomb into your mouth as soon as you take a sip. Sometimes you get these overly hopped beers or these really hoppy beers that kind of fill your nasal cavities with the hoppiness and everything as well. And if you're not a big fan of the the really hoppy stuff, like me, sometimes that's words. Sometimes that can be off-putting, but very well done to Beavertown on this one. This is really easy.
No, I was going to say, how are you finding this, mate? Because you're not a massive fan of double IPAs. Now,
I'm not, because normally you get out, like I said, your nasal cavities get filled with pine needles and grapefruit, but I'm not getting that. I really think the lovely orangey flavours from the Amarillo are kind of balancing off the Citra and the Centennial in a really smooth. I mean, I'm getting those prickles of bitterness all around my mouth, which is lovely. Very, very slight malty tastes underneath. A really nice mix of hops on this. Too often Centennial can really overpower. Citra is a lovely hop. I'm not a huge fan of Centennial, let's be fair. I really love Amarillo. We've had some great Amarillo beers, like in the last year or so. But, I mean, this is a nice mix. It's a shame this is a limited edition. I'd like to think that they're going to bring this out, a bit more regularly. 8.7%. It's not a guzzler, but I really want to guzzle it.
It is. It's one that it makes you want to drink it.
Yeah.
It's so tasty and it's so well balanced. The balance is perfect on it. It's got just about the right body. It's really easy to drink. It's fantastically as well coming from a can. It's not too carbonated, so it's not being killed by the fizz.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really, really good. I'm also disappointed that this is a limited edition, and it's interesting because Beavertown don't do IPA. If you look at their core range, they've got Neck Oil, which is their session IPA, and then they've got Gamma Ray, which obviously a lot of people get confused as an IPA when it actually isn't.
What is Gamma Ray classed as?
Gamma Ray's classed as a PAL, yeah.
Right.
And then you look kind of some of their seasonals, and that's where they bring in their IPA. So they've got their Bloody Hell, the Blood Orange IPA. They've now got the Skull King, which they're bringing in as a double IPA. I don't think they've got one later on in the year that's another IPA that comes in, because they do have the seasonals. But this is just an absolutely remarkable beer, and the fact that as a record breaking as well, because it's the first time we've seen a double IPA in a can from a UK brewery. Just goes to show how really I think Beavertown have come, and I still think they've got a long, long way to go. And I think they're just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and better and better.
Yeah. Anyone who watched the last lock-in or saw the tweets the next morning from people will remember my drunken mini rant about overly hopped beers, especially double IPAs and the like. But they've nailed this one. This is exactly what a double IPA should be like, I think. The mesh of flavours, the hops aren't killing everything, and it's just really nice. For a brewery that doesn't do IPA, except for the seasonal ones, they know how to do an IPA. Because that Blood Orange, the Bloody Hell was a gorgeous beer, and well worth having.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you can still get it in some places aroundabouts.
Well, you can still get it when we were there, mate. I've got to say, from the amount of cans they had stacked up of empty Bloody Hell cans, more than a seasonal this year. Yeah. And unless they're keeping them aside for next year, I think they've got plans to brew a few more batches of Bloody Hell. Yeah,
I had that on can and on either the keg or cask at the old fountain. I can't remember. But
the cask of it's very rare, mate. So
it's probably the keg then.
Yeah.
But and that was gorgeous. And please, Beavertown, if you're listening, just keep this on
More Skull King, please. Keep it coming.
Keep it on your books.
Coming. Yeah. Fantastic beer. Yeah. Listen, guys, if you can find this online, don't and ah about buying it. Don't question whether it's worth investing in. Get some of this bought and get it down, because it's an beer.
And he's done.
And it's gone. It was all too easy. That exactly what I look for in a double. Exactly what I look like. if anybody's seen the Skull King cans, that's exactly what I look like right now. Is that skull, that guy on the front there? No, exactly what I look for in a double IPA. Brilliant job, and lovely as well. And obviously, I'm going to say this, but perfect contrast to the Adnams Broadside at the beginning. Yeah. The two just balance so well in terms of this both big, bold, full of flavours, but both so really, really good at what they do as well.
Mm-hmm. And both really good examples of what the English beer scene is capable of pulling out. Absolutely.
And obviously, we're doing a show on English beer. There are hundreds of breweries in this country. It's difficult to have picked out a beer or beers to represent England. We've obviously gone for these two. We went for Adnams because it was a fairly easy choice with a Broadside. Luckily, Beavertown dropped the Skull King just as we finished recording the last season, and it was just an opportunity to really showcase the old and the new.
Yeah. Right. So that's Adnams Broadside, 6.3%. We had it in bottle, and Skull King from Beavertown, which is 8.7% double IPA. Gorgeous mix of citrus, Centennial, and Amarillo hops in that, and obviously the first Goldings? First Gold hops.
First Gold, yeah.
Gold hops in the Broadside. Right. As we head, luckily, quite as we head downhill towards the end. Fucking hell. You didn't give it easy to me on this first show back, did you, Steve?
No. Let's break you in gently. Let's just try and break you on the first show.
Do we have an Instagram of the week, mate?
Well, we do, mate, and actually we have two this week, because I couldn't split them, and so both of these will go into the Prize This No More fund for the draws in a few weeks' time. But the first one is a new contributor to the Prize, and possibly one of the greatest names I'm ever going to say on air. So at Gammon Baron, which is just the name, James McIntyre, great picture of a Skull King can. There were obviously lots of pictures on Instagram over the last couple of weeks of Skull King, and I thought it only right on tonight's show to celebrate the Prize This No More with a Skull King picture. So that's the first Prize winner, and then the flip side of that is obviously somebody actually also posted a picture of Broadside as well. So I thought you can't give one and not the other. So regular contributor to the Prize, Plim Sean 101 for his picture of a bottle of Broadside in an Adnams glass with a Union Jack draped over it. You can't get more British than Sean's picture. So both Sean and James will go into the pot for the Prize This No More prize that's being donated by eBrewer, and we will announce the winner of that on the show the week commencing 1st of June.
Very good. As I mentioned during the competition bit, we have 10% discount codes from 3 different online retailers. Ales by Mail, our old mates, are still offering their 10% discount code, as well as new codes from eBrewer, who are offering the competition prize. They're offering 10% discount not only on their beer range but also on their beer club. Isn't that right, Steve?
It's £10 off the first order of a beer club subscription. Yeah.
And the other one is Beautiful Beers, a shop that I've regularly visited. It's in Bury St Edmunds. They have a great range of Trappist beers, all kind of Belgian stuff, all stuff from Europe, glassware, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if the 10% discount applies to glassware, but you could always drop Renee a note and just find out.
And I've got to say as well, is take some time to have a dig around their website, because you'll find some gems in there
Oh, yes.
as well. I actually found, I'm going to announce it now, probably already sold out, but I actually found he was one of the only online suppliers still to be stocking Left Hand Nitro Stout. Now, that's a beer that comes in and goes out very quickly from most online suppliers. So take the time to have a dig around the Beautiful Beers website, and you will find some fantastic little gems hidden in there.
And if you're in Suffolk, drive up to Bury St Edmunds, pop in, see Rene in the shop. It's a great little shop. I've been going there for a couple of years, and he's a lovely fella. 10% off from him as well. Check out the Season 7 beer list page on our website, which is beeroclockshow.co.uk, and you can find the discount codes there at the bottom. Right, what's coming up next week, mate?
Okay, next week we will be going back to Ireland, that we were supposed to be doing on this week's show, but it got bumped in favour of Skull King. So next week we're going back to Ireland, and we are reviewing a brewery that we didn't feature in the last season of the Irish beers, a brewery called 8 Degrees, who do some fantastic beers. They do 2 of the best IPAs and double IPAs in Ireland, after obviously Galway Bays of Foam and Fury. But next week we are featuring a beer that was very, very limited that they produced in Ireland, called Polar Vortex, and that's another IPA, and we are very grateful to our good old friend Wayne in Ireland for getting that beer over to us to sample on this season of the show.
Indeed, and don't forget to hang around after the tinkly music for Steve's interview with Belinda Jennings from Adnams, all about one of our featured beers from tonight, Broadside. It's a really interesting interview. It's definitely worth listening to. It's only about 7 minutes long, so give that a listen. Right, our website is beeroclockshow.co.uk. Twitter is at beeroclockshow. Instagram is at beeroclockshow. Untapped is at beeroclockshow Steve. I'm on Untapped at beershowmark, and I'm on Twitter at beershowmark. Right, you've killed me, Steve.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, it's a big start to the season.
Very big start.
We've got some great stuff coming up this season, so it can only really go up from here,
yeah,
or down, dependent on what way you're looking at it.
So yeah, check out the beer. The Season 7 beer list. It is the Six Nations season. We've got beers coming from all the different countries that are within the Six Nations. Rugby or something.
Rugby, but also it does, if anybody hasn't already noticed, it does pull together our last 2 seasons as well. So if for those of you that have been with us for that long, you'll remember that we did Ireland last, and the season before that we did Italy as well. So yep. We're going back to Ireland with thanks to Wayne, and we're also going back to Italy with thanks to the guys from Beers from Italy as well, who have supplied us the beer for the Italian show when we get round to it.
Yeah, we've got Scotland, we've got Wales, and we've got France.
Yeah, we'll be doing it all, mate.
Yep. Right, that's it. Until next week, matey.
It's been the highlight of my week.
Mine. Until next time, bye-bye.
It's Beer O'Clock, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Beer. This week I am at Adnams with Belinda Jennings, who is the production and quality manager. Belinda, welcome to the show.
Hi Steve, thank you.
We are talking Broadside this week. It's the beer we featured on the show this week. It's easily one of your most recognisable beers from your core range. Mm-hmm. What's the story behind Broadside?
Well, Broadside has had a long-standing tradition, a lot of history there. So we had, back in 1672, we had the Battle of Solbay in Southwold, and in 1972 we decided to celebrate that fact, 300 years, and we launched Broadside. Okay, so it's a recipe then that's about... It's 43 years now, yeah, we recently celebrated 40 years. So
recipe obviously well before your time here, yes, at the brewery.
Why, thank you.
Where do you know where the original inspiration came from for the recipe as it stands now?
As it stands now, obviously there's a difference. It first came out in bottle, which was a very sort of traditional, rich, strong, fruity beer with just your sort of your darker colour and traditional British hops. That's in bottle. And then in the 80s we developed the cask version.
Mm-hmm. And there's quite a significant difference in the ABV of the bottle and the cask.
Yes.
Why is that? Was that intentional?
It was, yes. We do get asked that a lot because it can be confusing for customers. Yeah, so back in the 70s, the bottle market was going well. People were drinking. They liked the strong Broadside at 6.3%. In the 80s, there was the sort of decline in the bottle market. More people were drinking cask beer, but they sort of made the decision, we want to keep this brand going on cask, but 6.3% was a bit strong. So that's when the recipe was sort of tweaked down a little bit. The same sort of basis of flavours, but tweaked down to the 4.7%.
Okay. And which one's better?
Ooh, I think the bottled Broadside.
Okay.
I do like my sort of really sort of full malty beers like that.
What do you think the beer says about Adnams as a brewery?
It's been going so long and it's doing so well. It's a very sort of core traditional beer, which is what we are about, as well as sort of diversifying now with some more of these modern styles. But it's a lot about our tradition, our heritage, and the history with the Battle of Salt Bay as well.
Mm-hmm. And what's obviously the history's there in terms of the Battle of Salt Bay. Why the name Broadside?
It's part of a ship, isn't it? I think nothing to
Not
do with the
particularly
size of the.
person.
Yes, I think so. I just think that's where it came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've currently got hidden away in a warehouse somewhere. You've got a few barrels with some Broadside sat in it, aging away. What was the decision behind playing around with particularly using Broadside as a beer to barrel age?
As I say, it is one that we're really well known for, and it's also such a robust, strong beer. It's one we thought would work well in the barrels. So yeah, we got all sorts tucked away. I lose track myself of what we've got sort of hidden away and what we're producing. Various bugs and yeasts added and fruits. Then of course we've got our spirited Broadside as well now from the distillery. Yeah. Which is our bottled version, distilled, and then put into barrels for 1 year.
Mm-hmm. And at some point, when we spoke to Fergus previously, he was saying the aim will be to do a Broadside aged version of Broadside, or almost. So that spirit of Broadside casks you're just waiting for them to finish their life as creating that product.
Yes.
And then the aim is going to be to put some Broadside into those and
right. Okay. Yeah, that's
almost with the double Broadside.
Double Broadside.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. No, I don't think
was
I've
that
heard
news
that
to
one.
you?
That's news to me. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
No, there's always something new happening. Which is good. I think we put Broadside pretty much into every sort of, because we sort of sell products as well, like ice cream in our local shops, in our shops. So we've got Broadside ice cream, Broadside bacon.
Well, there's a Christmas pudding as well, isn't there?
Yes,
they
do.
Christmas
Yeah, they're
pudding?
very popular. They're very good.
Okay, so let's just let's briefly talk about you as a brewer here. How long have you been with Adnams now?
Be 10 years this year.
Okay.
In June.
And what was your background before that? Was you in brewing before that?
I was, yes. I had sort of about 8 or 9 years at another brewery, quite a large brewery in Suffolk, on the west side.
Brewing we don't
think which one that one.
Yeah, we don't mention it on this show. People that listen regularly know that's the brewery that shall not be named.
Oh. But for me as training, it was a brilliant base for sort of developing as a brewer and doing my brewing exams. And then this job came up at Adnams, and I was like, whoa, yes, that's.
And if I've done my research right, you're sort of responsible for the Jack Brand range as well. You're the one that gets to play around with the ideas and come up with new ideas.
I started some of them. There's a team of us, so we all have a little involvement depending on the time. And,
Where do you go for your inspiration for new beers in that range?
Well, initially I have craft beer bars. You know, it's a hard job, but you've got to
Somebody's
keep out there and see what's about, and or just think of a sort of new idea ourselves, and mainly looking around and seeing what's about.
Yeah. And if there was one beer that you've not brewed yet, what's the beer that you would want to brew as part of that range?
We talked earlier, I do like the Saison beers, and I also like the sort of sort of the American hops, but also the British hops now, the Jester, which we've just done. So it'd probably be like a very hoppy saison, that sort of style.
Okay. And the wild hop that you did last year was kind of first nod towards a saison style beer for
yes,
Adnams.
that did have some saison.
And recently you've done the collaboration with Magic Rock. Is there any plans to look to add a saison to either the Jack brand, well, probably the Jack brand range at some point?
I hope so. Yeah, because I think there's a market for it. Yeah, I'd really like a saison in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, I'm taking up enough of your time. I'm going to let you get back down to the brewery. Thank you for talking to us about Broadside and giving us a little bit of background as to you, and we'll look forward to the other beers that come out of Adnams in the next few years.
Brilliant. Cheers, Steve.
Thank you.